And this is TalkRadio1.com. Mark Germain live every weeknight, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific, streaming and by podcast anytime. We've had Luke Ford on the show a couple times in the past, and I always enjoy talking to you, Luke. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here, Mark.
So, let's see, where do we begin? I was going to talk to you a few weeks ago during the 200th, that it was the 200th birthday. It doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth.
I think it was the 250th or 200th birthday of Charles Darwin.
Yeah, we were going to talk about Darwinism, and then as we got closer to the date, and then you got sick, it turns out we never did that show. But I guess that's probably an interesting place to start. Do you believe in evolution?
Yes, I do.
And you don't think that's incompatible with the belief about, God created Earth and on the seventh day he rested?
No, I do not, because I believe that God created evolution, that he guided the evolutionary process to where we are today. But I do not believe in 7 24-hour periods for creation. I mean, after all, the sun's not created until like the third or fourth day, so, what kind of 24-hour periods were those? So I don't believe those first chapters of Genesis to be taken literally. So I don't read the Bible for scientific information. So.
What should be taken literally in the Bible?
That is a great question, and that is a question to which I do not have an answer.
Well, let's take a step back. For people who don't know you or your background, Luke Ford was raised as a Christian by a father who was kind of a famous theologian in Australia, correct?
Yes, in Seventh-day Adventism.
And it wasn't until you were in your 20s that you discovered Judaism and converted. Do I have the chronology about right?
That is correct.
And so you've been, for about somewhere between 15 and 20 years, you've been an Orthodox Jew.
Correct.
And do you know exactly how many years?
93, so what's that, 16 years?
And I don't know if we've talked about this before, so if you feel like you're repeating yourself, forgive me, because I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people, but was there a day where you just said, I am no longer a Christian, I am now a Jew?
I basically quit being a Christian around age 18 and went into no religious belief for a few years. And then around Christmas time of 1989, I decided I'm going to become Jewish.
And you didn't there wasn't some kind of a crisis or epiphany. There was no incident. Nothing happened to you. I talked about this on the show. In fact, it was on yesterday. I replayed the interview with someone that you've also spoken to, which is Bill Lobdell. We were talking about. He's got a new book called Losing My Religion, and how being a reporter for the religion column in the LA Times turned him against Christianity, which is kind of unusual. But I was saying to him that, like Yusuf Islam, Cat Stevens, was literally drowning while swimming off the shore of Malibu, and he prayed to God, if you save me, I will dedicate my life to you. And miraculously, he claims, he was washed ashore and became a Muslim. So was there any kind of an incident like that with you, where some kind of a lightning strike that made you...
No. And I don't know anyone who's become an Orthodox Jew as a result of any incident like that. I'm sure there are such people, but I don't know any of them. Mm-hmm. Because, like, for Bill Lobdell, his is a very Christian, distinctly Christian journey. He became Christian primarily as a result of, like, an emotional experience of Christ, and he left it primarily as a result of emotional experiences that there was nothing special about Christianity. So Judaism is not primarily an emotion-driven, experiential-driven religion. You don't become Jewish or become a religious Jew because you experience God. The Christians broke away from the Jews 2,000 years ago because they believed they experienced God in the person of Jesus Christ. This personal experience of God and these feelings that drive much of the Christian conversion process just isn't there in Judaism. It's a very different thing.
You've obviously had this conversation with your father. Was there something in his life that solidified his belief in Christ?
Yeah, I think it was his experience, personal experience with Christians when he was a teenager, and the rhetoric that religions use is very important, and so Jesus recommends that people come to him and come to God as little children. There's nothing in 4,000 years of Judaism that recommends that people come to God as little children. It's a whole different experience. Like the Christian conversion experience is primarily an emotional one, of feeling a oneness with Jesus and communion with Jesus, and there's nothing similar to it in Judaism.
So this idea of, certainly Moses believes he heard the voice of God speaking to him in a burning bush. So there are examples in the Hebrew Bible of God communicating with man. Why?
But Judaism basically says that ended with the prophet Malachi about 2,400 years ago. So we don't go on.
Meaning what?
God spoke to me, and therefore we overturn the tradition.
So
that's a Christian thing.
Tell me the Malachi story. I'm not familiar with it.
Well, he's the last prophet, and so Judaism holds that direct prophecy between God and man ended about 2,500 years ago with the prophet Malachi. So he's the last prophet in the Jewish tradition. So after that, we had the development of the Talmud, which was not based on prophecy, but was based on a bunch of rabbis sitting around arguing various points of Jewish law and various stories. So we developed a rabbinic tradition, and so when we decide how to do things and look for guidance, we look back over 2,500 years of the rabbinic tradition. The way Judaism is practiced, certainly Orthodox Judaism, is far more influenced by the Talmud than by the Bible. And this whole idea of, I have an experience with God, therefore I know what to do with my life, is just not Jewish.
The older you get, Luke, the more sense Judaism makes to you, or do you find yourself saying, I can't run with that?
This will tie into Charles Darwin. The older I get, the more sense I have that we live in a fractured world where no one model explains reality completely. That if you're looking for scientific information, you should go to scientists, is my point of view. If you're looking for historical information, such as what happened with the Israelites in Egypt 3,200 years ago, I don't think you should go to rabbis or religious traditions. I think you should go to the premier historians, whether they are Muslim, atheistic, or communist. Just go to whoever's the best historian. If you're looking for guidance, with your health, then there are a whole variety of professionals. And then Judaism has a profound way of life that it offers to the Jew, but I don't look to it for scientific guidance or health guidance, or it may have some insight on say, the practice of journalism, but I wouldn't go to a surgeon whose primary frame of reference for surgery was the Talmud or religious text. So it's like, I feel like I live in a very fractured world, and I look to completely different spheres for the guidance in that sphere.
And so the older you get, the more you accept that the answers to a lot of your challenges in life are not going to be found in the Hebrew Bible?
I've never really thought that they would be found in the Hebrew Bible. I mean, not since like the...
Or let me just... because it's a little bit limiting to say the Hebrew Bible. In Judaism.
I I don't think I look any more or any less for answers in Judaism than fit